former Bachelorette Hannah Brown posted a video of her singing to DaBaby's Rockstar where she actually sang the N-word. So obviously this really sparked some outrage on Twitter, and it got Bachelor Nation reacting to it too. I do want to say that Hannah posted an apology statement writing that there's no excuse for the video, which she called unacceptable. But as you can imagine, a lot of people had a lot of thoughts. What were yours?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the two most notable weigh-ins from Bachelor Nation were Rachel Lindsay's, who is the franchise's only Black lead ever, and who actually at the end of Peter's season addressed this on the Women Tell All with Chris Harrison. They kind of did a whole segment of that episode about racism from the fans and contestants on the show getting hateful messages on Twitter and on Instagram and social media. And then Tyler Cameron weighed in, and he's of course Hannah Brown's, not just her ex-boyfriend from being one of the finals on her season, but then they quarantined together, reigniting rumors about their relationship. So I think those two voices are really loud because of Rachel's history with the franchise, of who she is, of what she stands for, and because of Tyler's history with Hannah. And Tyler just basically kind of applauded Rachel for what she said. He said he wasn't here to drag Hannah, but that everybody should take a look at what Rachel said. So I actually want to play a little clip from Rachel's Instagram Live if we can.
It's easy to make a statement. It's easy to hide behind words, but when you're bold enough to say the N-word on camera, on your platform, then you need to be bold enough to use your face and you're on camera and apologize in the same way that you said the word. Like, I'm not discrediting the apology. I'm just saying that we can't give people a pass for this. We have to hold people accountable for what they're doing. Let me give you a little history on that word. That word has so much weight and history behind it. If you don't know, please do yourself a favor and educate yourself on that word.
So overall, I thought Rachel made excellent points, and I completely agreed with everything that she said in terms of her saying that it's never okay for non-Black people to use that word. It's using that word on a major platform means that you've got to give a big apology, that you've got to speak out because you're really setting an example with that size of an audience. And Tyler reinforced what Rachel said and noted that he wasn't there to drag Hannah, that he said Hannah's got, a lot to learn. I don't know. I think, I do think it's kind of like, it's hard to be like, I'm not here to call someone out, but also like I am calling them out. So that was a little bit conflicting for me. But at the same time, I do just think it's important to like open the door to the conversation. And I thought that Hannah's apology hit all the important points in terms of her saying, I own this. I need to do better. I'm sorry. It was wrong. And I thought that Rachel made a really good point that like, you should just never be comfortable saying that word as a non-Black person.
Right.
You should never feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And it shouldn't make you feel uncomfortable. She says, if you wouldn't say that in front of your Black friends, you shouldn't be saying it on your Instagram, period. What interesting to note, though, is Rachel, first of all, she said, I'm so tired of this. I hate that I have to do this. She almost feels like a sense of responsibility to speak out on it. But more importantly, because she says she reached out directly to Hannah to kind of offer advice how to address this controversy, make sure she understood the weight of it and how why it's so bad. And ultimately, Rachel had said in her Instagram story that she was disappointed and criticized Hannah's apology because it was a statement and not her going on camera. She was saying that if you're bold enough to say that on camera and sing it, whether you thought about it or not, like you should face it head on too and go on camera to say it. So I can see why she was so disappointed.
I was a little confused on that part of what Rachel was explaining, only because I didn't totally understand if she meant that what she needed from Hannah was an on-camera speaking to the camera apology. And I think that's what she was saying.
That's what I got from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was basically saying, if you're going to use your voice and use your face on camera and be okay saying that word, you need to apologize on that same level.
Rachel implied that she felt like Hannah's apology was a little bit of it was cowardice because she didn't face her fans on camera, but I think it was Rachel also just kind of teaching a lesson and holding someone accountable, someone who has such a huge platform. And to some credit, Tyler Cameron did that too. He was like, Do I think Hannah B is racist? No, but this is about holding people accountable and making sure that everyone else who follows you and watches your every move knows that's not okay what you did. I kind of felt when Rachel was saying that she's so tired of having to speak on this, because she has, as the first Black lead on the franchise, has kind of been the poster child to talk about these kind of issues. And I don't think she anticipated having to talk about it in this regard, like with someone like Hannah, a former Bachelorette, on Rachel's own Instagram live, because obviously I think people, carelessly using the N-word is probably something that Rachel has dealt with her whole life. So having to deal with it within the Bachelor Nation world too, I'm sure was equally as frustrating, but hopefully a lesson learned too, because a lot of people from Bachelor Nation were not shy about voicing their concerns about this whole thing too. Nick Vile said he was disappointed, and there's no excuse for that kind of language, period. And
look, I think at the end of the day, to me, what's most important is don't just shut the issue down, have the conversation, because that is where the growth comes from. That is where people learn to be better. And there is a difference between saying, I'm going to do better, and exploring, why did I think this was okay? And how will I do better? And I do think it's a big opportunity to have that dialogue. And if you show that dialogue, then that does help other people learn, see the differences. I'm sure that Hannah right now is feeling probably attacked, freaked out, like she's this one person, and sometimes that big following can be huge and supportive, and sometimes that big following can be scary. But I do think, like, if she's ready, when she's ready, that if that conversation could happen, that could be where the real change happens. Because yes, I thought the apology was good and covered what it needed to say. Yeah. But how do you grow from that? And showing that path is what would be most helpful.
I agree. And like, mistakes happen, but I think it's owning up to those mistakes. And then, as you put it, like really showing like how you learned from them, you know what I mean? And putting that action into place.
Well, and Denny, I want to ask you, because you are a Latino man, you are a gay man. If a celebrity who you followed or knew used a slur that you found offensive, how would you want them to address that to make you feel like that was the right way to handle it?
For me, it doesn't matter whether it's on camera or in a statement, but it's in the words you choose, right? Like, I would need to see, and I just said this, it's like, mistakes happen. I do believe people can learn and grow, but you have to show that. You have to prove that. So, it's taking those actions, educating yourself, whether that's having a sit-down conversation with someone who was personally offended and can share why that affected them so much, as part of a larger conversation about how something like that would affect the community at large, and also putting that into practice. Do I believe Hannah B is racist? No, not at all. I think she probably made a mistake. And I think, it takes more than just walking back your words, but actually showing people that you understand why that hurt so many people. So I would have to see it, you know what I mean? Like that action put into place. Like, yes, she did the right thing by issuing that apology, whether it was on camera or not, but what next?
All right, well, let's switch gears, Denny. I think Adele and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are the ones to give us that today.
Absolutely, yeah. So apparently, obviously Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they're new to Los Angeles, and they reportedly have been taking advice, I should say, from a fellow famous Brit, the one and only Queen Adele. Adele apparently lives just a couple minutes from them and has offered up her advice about the area, what schools Archie should go to, which, by the way, like, talk about a dinner party. Like, that's the one I would want to go to. Just Adele at the piano while Megan is cooking up that chicken roast.
Well, what this kind of like reminds me that I do love about specifically British celebrities is it's a small world over there. Like, I've been to London several times. There's London and then there is England and like rural England. But in terms of like, if you're famous in England, you often spend a lot of time in London, right? And so people just know each other. It's really small worldy. And this does feel so believable to me, of like Adele just being at a dinner party with Harry and Meghan, and they're just talking and chatting. And by the way, LA is not an easy city to acclimate to. So they need a guide. It's not the most, we don't have the public transportation of London and of New York and some of those other cities where you kind of can get around easily and figure things out. And look, I know Harry and Meghan weren't on the tube, but you know what I'm
No, totally. Well, that, and like you mentioned, it's a small world in the UK. It's an even smaller world for Brits who relocated to a place like LA. So I could see why they would want to maybe like touch base with someone like Adele. My thing is, and I think people forget that even though Meghan was an actress, she wasn't filming Suits in Los Angeles. I think that was in Canada, right?
She spent a lot of time in Canada. I mean, she certainly grew up in the LA area, but I think this is also a whole different way of living, right? Like Adele's going to show them, here's how you can get around LA and try to live kind of a normal life.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think the quarantine has been, I would say, a bit of a weirdly timed moment with some silver linings for Harry and Meghan to move to LA because everybody is at home. So I feel like they're hopefully able to get into their new house and figure things out without people out hounding them everywhere they go.
Which is why it's also nice to have a neighbor like Adele, because as we've learned from we've heard from our royal expert, Katie Nichol, that, you know, Harry's feeling a little homesick. His whole family is in the UK. And to your point, we're living in a time where everyone has to self-isolate at home. He's not networking, like he's not meeting people, you know? So that, again, it's nice to have Adele reportedly a couple doors down to kind of shed a little bit insight for you, make you
feel opens their door. She's like, hello.
It's me. Yes.
How are you doing, Meghan and Harry?
I love it. Well, listen, you moved to Los Angeles, not from the UK, but I mean, you are not an LA native. You love it now. I know you do. So what advice or what insight would you offer Harry and Meghan this first year in Los Angeles?
Yeah, totally. I think you got to find your little neighborhood in LA. It's like finding your borough anywhere else. LA can feel really spread out. The traffic can make it feel isolating. So I think you got to find your little local neighborhood spots that you love to go to, make it feel small. We know Meghan loves her yoga. People in LA love the yoga.
Oh, they love to work out.
You've got to find a good yoga instructor,
find
your favorite hikes. Yeah. And I will say this for Harry and Meghan, the trials and tribulations that relationship has been through, like if they can continue to make it and be happy together, she moves to a different country for him, learns to be royal. Now he's moving to a different country for her, learning to be in the LA area. Like, this is overcoming.
It really is. But you know what? The weather helps. I feel like they're in a good spot. Apparently they're living temporarily in Tyler Perry's home in Malibu. It's like, yeah, go to the water. Mm-hmm. Like, go to the beach, enjoy the sunshine. That's what we're known for. And it's like, for me, I'm a Southern California native, and that novelty has never worn off. It's like, in fact, that's what's so tough about quarantine, I feel like, is we don't get to go outside as much as we're used to. But that, and I would also say, I feel like it's rite of passage to get a parking ticket. I'm not saying that they're going to be doing a lot of their own driving, but like, it's got to happen if you're in LA. It's got to happen once. It's going to
be, hopefully when we get back to our normal life, it's going to be so weird that Harry and Meghan live here. What are we going to do? See them at Jones on 3rd, at Alfred Coffee? Hey, what's up?
I talk about this all the time. Like, I'm banking on seeing Meghan Markle at the Rose Bowl flea market. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I want a mundane celeb encounter with these royals.
I love it.
Well, speaking of royalty, let's talk about American royalty. Chrissy Teigen and John Legend. It's business as usual, it seems like, at the Teigen household. Like, oh, I love that I said Teigen household. That was the That was amazing. It's her house. She's the queen. It's her house.
I think John would agree with you. I do.
Right? But quarantine's not going to stop these proud parents from throwing a epic birthday party for Miles, even if it's not full with a bunch of other kids and guests. Miles celebrated his second birthday, and they went all out. Should we get into it?
I loved the balloons with his name, the cute t-shirts. I mean, Chrissy has shown that she is really kind of the queen of throwing an at-home party. Like, she's joked she was a homebody before all this. I know she's struggling in quarantine, as everybody is, but she was at home cooking with her kids, and she threw birthday parties at home before this. And what I kind of loved about it was that I actually was watching this and feeling a bit of a beautiful sense of normalcy. We've seen a lot of those drive-by birthday car parades and honk and all that. And that's been this wonderful way to still show people we care, even in a strange time. Yeah. But it was nice to see this would just be a normal at-home birthday party. Like, okay, maybe we can start getting a little bit more regular in terms of what we're doing. Like, I saw that it looked like a woman in a mask had come to help set up the balloons and stuff. Okay. Let's find ways to get back to some of the things that we did love.
That's contact free too. You know, seemingly they were there without contacting the family. They had their masks on. And you're right. I feel like everyone's kind of yearning for that sense of normalcy a little bit. But then you have to realize that, oh my gosh, of course she did this for her son who just turned 2. Like, he has no idea what's going on. He doesn't know there's a pandemic, that he's not allowed outside. So it was nice to see them enjoy this, like, typical family moment. I loved the Elmo shirts. Everyone had an matching Elmo shirt. And plus, it was just like, it looked like a good time. And I don't know about you, but like I'm like craving, no pun intended, that kind of like familial social interaction. You know, it was nice to
Totally.
see that they got to enjoy it.
I mean, I think, and I hope that one day a silver lining that we all look back at this with, and there's so many horrible things about it, but I think we will look back and say having that time with family was so cherished. And I know you're missing your family. I'm missing mine too. And so it's sort of nice. I'm living vicariously through them a little bit. I'm like, they're together as a family.
Right. Yeah. And you know, I will say when people have to get creative for stuff like birthdays, that's kind of amazing too. Like you'll never forget that birthday when everyone showed up driving by, like with like horns and decorations. I've been a part of 3 birthday car parades now. And actually as the participant, it's also a good feeling. So, you know, it's all.
We're out in the world.
We're out in the world, sunshine. Oh my God, birthdays. Okay, this last one is really fun because Kyle MacLachlan, you might know him from Twin Peaks. Most people know him as Trey from Sex and the City. He just revealed to Page Six that he actually despised his character on that show. He was angry at him. I think if you were a Sex and the City fan, you know, Trey had some questionable characteristics. Poor Charlotte.
Did he explain in more detail?
He actually did more behind the scenes where he was talking about like some of the things. So one example that they showed was like, I guess his character on the show, when Charlotte couldn't conceive, gave her like a cardboard cutout of a baby, thinking that would make her feel better for her birthday.
Trey was like, a little tone deaf a lot of the time.
Exactly. And so he said that he would read some of the stuff in the script and ask the writers like, this doesn't feel right. And they said, no, it's funny. And he would just go along with it. But in hindsight, he said, I don't blame people for being angry at Trey. I was mad at him too.
I get that. Well, and you know how, I mean, I love that he said that. And we all love hearing that, the behind the scenes of these shows we love. I've been rewatching Sex and the City and all this because it's kind of one of those comforting nostalgic shows that is feeling good to watch. I remember listening to a podcast not long ago that dove into the show, and Chris Noth, who played Mr. Big, said he didn't like connect with Mr. Big either. He was like, I'm not this guy. I'm not this guy who's like this big money guy and dates women in this way and all that. So I think A, shows what good actors they are, and B, like, yeah, that's why we kind of don't love those characters, but have to have them because they're the counterparts. They show us the mistakes we're making. Right. I mean, all my love to the men of the world, but you are tone deaf sometimes.
Well, that, and I was gonna say, I feel like all the men on Sex and the City were all kind of like not great. Like, you know, they're all questionable. That's the word I should use.
Steve and Aiden were of a different breed.
Yeah.
Big had his growth. But see, this is why we get into it. And by the way, how many shows, if you really stop and like, look, you could say, I love a show, but if you stop and analyze each character, how many shows are there where you're like, that character, if I just knew that person, I wouldn't be friends with them. Crazy by. Yeah.
I really thought that with Friends. Like my favorite show of all time. I think about it when people ask me like, who's your favorite friend? You know, I always identify with like Rachel, Phoebe and Joey were always a laugh for me. And I felt like I always gave Ross the short end of the stick. I'm like, this guy is he's a basket case. You know what I mean? Like I remember him being such aloof, but then when I watched it back recently, I was like, wait, I don't think I gave him the proper shot, you know? Yeah, and especially David Schwimmer. I was like, you know, he turned out that character. Season 5 with like the tanning moment, the leather pants moment, the my sandwich. You're like, the guy was just going through it.
He's like the friend in the group who you need so that you can talk about the friend, you know?
That's a good point. Wait, do you have a TV character from a show that you love that like you couldn't stand?
I mean, I've been rewatching The Office a lot lately too, and I think you could make that argument for any of those characters. Like Michael Scott says horrible things, and things that would be so beyond tone deaf today. Like it worked because it was the comedic foil of the show. But even Jim, who's a beloved character on The Office, you could argue that a lot of the stuff Jim did, like the pranks he pulled, some of the stuff he did was like. That's why we love those characters, right? Because they're human. That's why we connect with them and we remember them because they're human and they're flawed and we relate.
That we relate so much that we forget that they're fictional characters. Like I'm just listening to you and I talk about this right now, and I'm like, we have to suspend our disbelief a little bit.
Jim? Where's Ross?
Right, exactly. My sandwich? We were on a break. Okay. On that note, let's wrap things up. It's always a pleasure starting my week with you, Lauren. So thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new spanking new episode of etlive at Home.
Thanks, Denny D. Cruel summer. Bye.